Alright, hey everyone, I'm Clint from GardenFrugal.com here today with another teary-eyed episode of Garden Frugal TV. So I'm just out here hanging out behind my wall of peppers here and in one of the raised beds getting ready to plant some fall crops. So this is basically the last or the end of the part of where you should be planting your fall crops, but I came across some stuff at the store that I just couldn't resist buying, and I'm kind of putting in here at the last minute. So you know, for your fall crops you can get some beans, some peas, broccoli, cabbage, carrots, beets, just any of your cool weather crops. You can get them in the ground and hopefully get a harvest before the hard freeze of winter. So anyways, but what I came across in the store here were some onions. So I love onions, but you can't beat Walla Walla onions. So it just brought to my attention that maybe I should do an episode with you guys on the different types of onions. So let me just start out by saying you can break it up into basically three types of onions. You'll have your storage onions, your fresh onions, and then your green onions. So green onions, basically anything in the store that you know, any of the onions that still have their tops are considered to be green onions. So don't confuse that with leeks or scallions. Some people will call all onions scallions, but that's not true. They're completely different. So leeks and scallions are different, but like I say, any onions with the top still on are green onions. And then you have your storage onions and your fresh onions. So you'll see in the store you have storage onions, and they kind of have the thick papery outer shell from being dried and cured, and they're basically offered in the grocery stores and everything year round. So they normally just classify them instead of their type or you know, what type of onion they are. They just classify them by color. So your whites, your yellows, your reds, and so on. And then fresh onions are classified the same way, usually just yellow, red, white, but you do have some varieties like the Walla Walla, the Visalia from Georgia. There's a Texas variety, and then there's a Maui Sweet, I think it's a Hawaiian variety. Those are usually only offered a certain time of the year because they don't have that storability like storage onions or fresh onions. So, and nothing beats a Walla Walla onion. When it's Walla Walla season, trust me, I am a happy camper. Walla Walla onions, you know, are a lot sweeter than a lot of the other varieties, and you know, just doing a Wikipedia search, you come across you know, some people in the Walla Walla area growing onions, selecting the sweetest variety, and then every year continuing to grow those ones, picking the sweetest ones again, growing from those, picking the sweetest ones, growing from those, to where over time they've got these really sweet onions. But what also makes them unique, just like the Visalia onions from Georgia, is the area they're grown in, the soil is abnormally low in sulfur, and sulfur is what gives the onions their kick or their spice or their heat. So the area that they're grown in, low sulfur, also gives them their extreme sweetness. So, and growing onions, what you need to know about growing onions is the perfect onion has 13 rings, or 13 leaves. So basically each leaf accounts to a ring on an onion, and a perfect onion has 13. So you know, some of you may consider that an unlucky number, but if I have, you know, this many Walla Walla onions that are huge and 13 ringed, I'm going to consider myself a pretty happy guy. So 13 rings is basically what you're going for. You can have more, you can have less. You know, if you have less, it will just mean that the bulb of your onion will end up getting smaller. So to get the 13 rings, and to get the perfect onion, you need to understand that there are basically three different types of onions when it comes to the growing aspect of it. So to the growing aspect of it, you have your long day, your short day, and your intermediate day onions. And what that's referring to is the hours of sunlight. So your short day, which is grown in the south, because days are shorter in the south, they don't get as much sun. Onions grown in the south are short days, and they will basically, depending on the hours of sunlight and the temperature, that's when they'll kick in from growing the green foliage and growing the leaves to then growing the bulb. So what you want it to do is you want it to grow, ideally, 13 leaves before the hours of sunlight and the temperature kick it into then growing the bulb. And then it'll concentrate, it'll stop growing leaves, and then it'll just concentrate on growing that bulb. So in the south, they grow short day. Short day is 10 to 12 hours of sunlight a day. In the middle of the country, you have the intermediate where you can grow, and those are from 12 to 14 hours of sunlight. And then in the northern part of the country is the long day, where it's 14 to 16 hours of sunlight will trigger the bulbing process. So, you know, you can't take a long day and put it in a short day. So let's say, for instance, you take a long day onion and you put it down in the south and you grow it down there. Well, down in the south, they're never going to reach that 14 to 16 hours of daylight. So the onions will just keep growing more and more leaves, more and more foliage, just put it on a big, huge top, and it'll never concentrate on growing the bulb, and you won't get very big or onions at all. Now, if you go the other way around, you take a short day onion and put it up in the north, well, it's going to hit that a lot quicker. So it's not going to grow as many leaves. So if it grows a lot less leaves, you're going to have less rings, and then when it concentrates down into the bulbing process, your bulbs are going to be a lot smaller. You know, I mean, just let's just say it didn't grow, you know, 2 more leaves. That could be potentially another inch or so on your bulb. So you don't want to do that. The great thing is the intermediate onions you can basically grow in the north or the south. Will pretty much do okay either place, but you really want to kind of understand what type of onion you're growing and what your location is. So another thing up here in the Pacific Northwest that some people like to do is overwinter their onions. So you'll see in seed catalogs, you know, from germination to harvest, different day lengths, and there are some seed companies out there that offer onions that have like a 300 days till harvest. So that would be the time now, you know, this late August, early September, is to plant those seeds, let them start growing. They'll grow through the winter, and then by, you know, next spring or summer, I can be harvesting some onions. So that's just something they do up here. I don't think they really do it in other parts of the country, but it's just something I think up here in the north is what some of the people do. But you know, these Walla Walla onion sets that they're giving me here, or that I found at the store, I'm hoping I can get these for basically a winter crop. I don't know. We'll see. I mean, this is the first time for planting these this time of year for me, but like I say, I saw Walla Walla onions. I couldn't resist, and I had to buy them. So when it comes time to plant onions, you can get them in lots of different forms. You can get onions in seeds. You can get them in onion sets, which are, you'll see them usually just in like those mesh bags, clear bags, and they're just small little onion bulbs with no tops on them. Those are onion sets. You can transplant those, and those are just basically onions from the year before that they grew to that certain size, they harvested, and then they're already ready to go. You can plant them, and then they'll kick off and start growing. They're usually short day storage onions. They're not usually any of the fresh varieties, because they're transporting them and selling them, and they just, if they're not the storage onions, they're just not going to keep very long and start to rot. So, and then the last thing you can get are transplants. So this is basically like a transplant as well. Sometimes you'll just see them with the bare onions with a rubber band around a whole bunch of them. So I'm just going to go through, transplant these in the ground, and like I say, I'm really hoping I can get some delicious Walla Walla sweet onions in the winter. So Once you harvest them, you probably want to know how to store them. And if you watched any of my previous episodes, or you've been to the website, you've seen I've got my guide for storing fresh produce. Go to the website, gardenfrugal.com, check it out, download it. It'll tell you how to store all your fresh produce, not just onions, but I'm sure most of you know storing the onions. They just like a cool, dry, well-ventilated area. So a lot of people will throw them in the bottom corner of a pantry or in a closet or something like that. So, and they do great. They'll store great. But that's also usually the place you store potatoes, and you don't want to put those two close together. The potatoes, the moisture from the potatoes will make the onions rot. So you want to put them in the same type of place, but you don't want to put them you know, close to each other, because one will the potatoes will influence the onions to rot. So you know, a tip I saw from someone online, they just got pantyhose, old pantyhose, put an onion in it, tied a knot, put another onion in it, tied a knot, and basically just made this long rope of onions, and then they just kind of hung it in the closet or the pantry or something like that, you know, and then you can just walk up and cut it with a pair of scissors, grab it, use your onion, and then it's kind of keeping them all separated, good airflow around them, and in a cool, dark place. So I thought that was a pretty cool tip. I just don't ever have any old pantyhose laying around the house, and I don't really see myself going out to buy a bunch of pantyhose to do that. So I just throw them in the pantry, and they do pretty good. The Walla Walla onions don't last very long though around here. So anyways, I hope that was informative. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and you know, I better get digging and transplanting here, but you guys know the drill. Until next time, know your limit and grow within it. Alright guys, take care.